Hello, everyone. We're live now. All right. Hello. Welcome. I am Caitlin Figak. I am the marketing manager here at Orvis for the dog side of the business. And this is one of our fall Orvis Days live streams. I'm joined today by James Birch. He's a senior UKC judge, and he is a part of the dog jumping side of the UKC competition sports. So he is joining me today to talk a lot about dog jumping basics, how you can get into the sport, different questions that we've got from some viewers, and then we'll wrap it up. So I will go ahead and let James introduce himself, and then we'll jump on into some questions.
I'm James, senior UKC judge and operations manager for Super Retriever Series. I run the mobile dock and dock jumping for them.
Sweet. And I know we were just chit-chatting about this before we jumped on, but you're actually on your way tomorrow to one of your championships, right?
Yes, we're headed down to Shreveport, Louisiana for our crown championship for the Super Dock.
Very cool.
Everybody that's competed throughout the year at our mobile facilities or our local clubs come out and compete for a crown trophy.
Sweet. And who do you have behind you? I can't help but ask you that as we just saw Denali, so maybe he'll pop back on.
Yeah, so that's Logan. He's a 7-year-old border collie. He's a avid dock jumper himself. You want to say hi, bud? Where'd you go? Hey, come here. No.
Is he competing?
He will be. Yeah, he will be.
Nice. Cool. Well, tell us about yourself and kind of how you got into the dock jumping side of things and how you made your way to then become a judge for it.
So I showed up at a local festival here in Arkansas, in my hometown, and had my dog Jesse with me, and we showed up for what they call fun jumps or try-its for the dock, and got up on the dock and had no problem getting right off the bat. And the community there, the competitors were really helpful and kind of helping me really pick things up and get going. And my now boss, the owner of Super Retriever Series, talked me into entering into the amateur division. And so we competed over the weekend and ended up winning first place in the amateur division. And I ended up winning some prize money and a 50-pound bag of dog food. And man, I've been hooked ever since. And so competed for, I think I'm going on 10 years now. And after about 5 years, I wanted to get more involved in it. And so I talked with Shannon and was like, I want to be more involved. And so kind of turned into me taking over the dock and traveling the country. And my first big show on the road, I traveled from Arkansas to Connecticut and kind of traveled the state since. And I'm going on my 5th year of organizing, judging, and all that for Super Retriever Series.
That's so cool. You just kind of like stumbled into it. Somebody convinced you to just like get your dog out there and jump in, and then here you are traveling all over, and that's a big part of your life. That's really cool. I feel like that's what seems fun about a majority of the competition sports, but I know this one's gotten a lot more popular over the years because it seems like one of those that's a little bit easier from a starting point, but you can definitely get really specific.
It is. I mean, what's great are the competitors. I mean, the dock diving community. I mean, like I said, I showed up first day not knowing anything other than here's a dock, here's a pool, your dog jumps into
it.
I mean, she'd go cliff diving with us, and we'd jump off like a 10-foot cliff, and she'd love to swim, so I didn't think she'd have any problem with it. And like I said, there were guys that have been doing it for a lot longer than I have, and gave me some pointers and kind of coached me through it. And like I said, I got hooked instantly, and I feel like the competitor basis is a lot different than other dog sports.
Yeah. That brings up a good point. I know we're talking a lot about UKC and dog jumping, but just in case anyone's not overly familiar with the organization and then what the sport is, do you want to give just a brief overview of kind of UKC and then how dog jumping kind of came to be within the organization?
Yeah, so I mean, UKC has been they've been recognizing dog jumping since 2007. You don't have to have a purebred. It can be a rescue. I mean, my first dog that got me into it, she was a rescue. Um, just the dog needs to have a little bit of water drive, toy drive, and I mean, just working on them with that. And I mean, there's different divisions set up, so even though you're starting out, you don't have to jump 20 something feet. I mean, if you're just jumping off the dock, there's a division for you. So you don't have to worry about competing against the dogs that are just soaring through the air and hitting those massive jumps. So it's really nice to kind of get out there and work on it and build up your dog. And I mean, it's a team sport. I mean, your throw or whatever counts just as much how big the dog's going to jump, because they thrive off of how you throw it.
Yeah. And there's like different parts to the different, even within dog jumping, there's like different like games. I don't know if that's the proper term, but
Yeah. So
jumping farther or jumping taller. So I'm sure even within that, then you can also do like the different levels too.
yeah, so the distance is the one that everybody does. So that's where the dog jumps off the 40-foot dock. You don't have to use all 40 feet. You can use however much I mean the dog needs. And the measurements where the tail meets the butt, so where that breaks the water, that's where we judge it from. Then you have the vertical, where the bumper is held up in the air 8 foot from the edge of the dock, and you have a starting height generally around 4 foot 6 inches, and goes up after each grab by 2 inches. And so you have that discipline. And then you have air retrieve, which is like vertical. Instead of going up, you go out further. So you start out at 6, 7 feet, and then you move out 1 foot increments until the dog can't catch it anymore. And then there's speed retrieve, which is you start at the 10 foot mark on the dock. There's a bumper at the end of the pool. The dog jumps off, swims, grabs the bumper, and it's a timed event. So depending on the organization, time stops either when the bumper's grabbed or when they meet a certain requirement on the pool. There's a distance that we stop time on.
That's cool. So even just within it, there's different options based on kind of where your dog performs best or even what kind of works for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the distance is one that everybody does. The verticals a little bit harder because the dogs not necessarily know to look up to see the bumper. And I mean, if you have a landscape backdrop or the sun or cloudy, the dog may not see the bumper. So it's a lot harder for them to recognize that. And with the air retrieve, I mean, it hangs at a stationary point, and like I said, it just moves back by 1 foot each time, so they can pick up on that. And so not as many people do those games because the dogs haven't really picked up. And a lot of times at a mobile venue, I mean, we don't have an air retrieve rig or something like that, so a lot of people just stick with the distance part of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like I've seen more of the distance stuff in my passing, but I feel like I've seen more of the vertical jumps probably in the days of cool videos and stuff. They make for some fun action shots.
Oh, they do. I mean, and the dogs love it. I mean, that's all it comes down to is the dogs enjoy it. it's great exercise. I mean, it's low impact for them to swim. Um, they really enjoy it.
Yeah. What do you think is like some of the key differences in dock jumping versus some of the other competition sports? I know you're saying this is open to all breeds. I know a couple others within the UKC umbrella also kind of open up to some mixed breeds and things like that. But I think the season is probably a little different than some others too, just based on having the water and outdoor element involved too.
Right. So, I mean, with most dog sports, I mean, you have to work on your command. So, like in agility or rally or even showing your dog, I mean, you want them to be well behaved and not necessarily hyper and just full of that drive and energy. So, with dog jumping, I mean, you can have them rambunctious and high energy. And I mean, that's what you want. I mean, the more that they get into it, they're going to jump better and enjoy it themselves.
Yeah. I feel like that's like the most fun part is watching like the handlers getting them all like hyped up to go. I think that's like always
Oh
super
yeah,
fun.
and I mean anybody can walk up. They see a pool, they see a dock, they see dogs jumping. I mean it can be a little Yorkie or a Great Dane or anything in between, and they're going to cheer for the dog whether it's jumping 20+ feet or they're just barely
They're
jumping off
just
the
doing
dock.
a
Well, I
little
mean a lot of
something.
dogs when they start, they're right on the edge, and you see them and they're hesitating, and and I mean they may sit up there for a 30 seconds just okay, I want it, and then finally once they jump, I mean everybody can get into it. And so that really is, it's different because it's more of a spectator type thing,
Yeah.
whereas like you go to an agility ring, I mean you can watch a dog, but I mean it's just the dog and the handler there, and they're running through the tunnels and over the hurdles and over the teeter totter and all that. So it's a little bit different. It's more of a high energy spectator, I mean, type sport.
Everyone's kind of getting involved with it. I know when the Orvis crew was down at Seawee, where our booth was positioned kind of close to the dock jumping event, and the crowd over there was massive. Like everyone was hanging out over at that side, and strategically, that's where all the food trucks were too. And I was like, see what they're doing. But yeah, they were having such a blast over there.
Yeah, I mean, I love doing the, like, so we'll go to some fairs or something, and normally on those Fridays is like field trip day. And I mean, I've had 300 kindergarten, first, second, third graders just leaning up on the pool and getting so into it. And we'll go, and if we're just messing around, we'll go and short throw it on the side. And I mean, the kids just get drenched, and I mean, they love it. And I was in Nebraska over the summer and just doing a little practice with the dog, and a group of kids came up and sat in the bleachers, and they started chanting 30 feet, 30 feet. And it was the greatest thing because, I mean, they don't know much about the sport. They just see the measurement banner and they're thinking, all right, yeah, we're gonna see a high jumping dog. and
Yeah, they're just
and,
like beat
and
the next one.
Exactly, and depending on where you're stationed viewing this, I mean, you may think it's jumping 30 feet, but unless you're just keyed in right on that one spot, I mean, the dog may only be jumping 15, 16 feet. But
Hmm.
when they were sitting, I mean, it just, they were getting so into it. And I mean, they chanted for like 5 minutes. And
That's so fun.
you're just up there having some fun, wearing Denali out. And I mean, it was just, I mean, seeing the smiles and them enjoying it is good to see.
What percentage of handlers do you have that are like junior handlers? Do you know?
So we there are some youth handlers out there. I mean, we want definitely want to have kids up there with their dogs and handle them. And I mean, I've had a 2-year-old up on the dock. I mean, he'd get up there with his dad, and the dad would help control the dog, and he'd walk his son up to the edge of the dock, and the son would just barely
Like
throw it.
barely.
And I mean, this is a big jumping dog, but I mean, he's just going to go after that bumper. So he'd run full fledged on the dock and kind of slow down and just plop right in the water. And
Oh,
I
Oh,
mean,
that's precious.
yeah, but I mean, he's like I said, he's probably 6 or 7 years old now and still competing, and I mean, he enjoys it just as much as the us older guys, and I mean,
Yeah,
it's great to see him up there.
that's awesome. I always love watching the younger handlers because I feel like I mean, we're all in it to have fun, but there's just like a level that's even more so there, and just watching the interactions between like younger kids and dogs is it's just a heartfelt moment. So that's cool.
Yeah.
How can you tell if your dog might be good at dog jumping? I know you said that you had a dog that was cliff jumping with you and made it probably a lot easier to kind of convince her to jump into the pool. But any other kind of like common traits or signs you've seen through the years that kind of make a good dog jumping dog?
Well, I mean, obviously your Labradors and hunting dogs are going to be a little bit better as far as the transition of being up on the dock. I mean, when we're out hunting, we're normally hunting in dark, murky water, and they can really see that. Well, when you get up on the dock, you've got a clear pool. I mean, who knows what the dog really sees with them being colorblind? So a lot of dogs tend to kind of tense up there, and so if they have I mean, you want them to have a good high energy for a toy that's going to float. You want them to have a lot of water experience so that they're comfortable. I mean, obviously you want to have them to where they can swim well. I mean, I teach a lot of classes where dogs don't have much water experience, and so they're sitting there doing the whole doggy paddle, splashing all in their face. And I mean, once they get it down, I mean, the legs stay in the water and it's more of a fluid strokes for them. And they really tend to do a lot better there. So definitely having a high energy toy drive and having a little bit of water experience is a good start.
Yeah, I feel like that toy piece is probably underthought about at times just because it's a lot easier with like a treat or something like that versus like
Right.
getting
Yeah.
them
Oh,
set up.
and that's the thing. A lot of training, I mean, people use the treats. I mean, it's a reward situation, and you want to definitely reward and praise the dog for doing what we
Yeah,
want for them. So, I mean, we don't allow food or anything like that on the docks because if you drop something, it will deter the other
yeah,
dogs, and you want to make it fair for everybody. So,
and clean and
um,
that good stuff.
so I have a lot of people that show up for training here and there, and it's like, oh well, this toy won't float. It's like, well, it, I understand that's their like favorite toy, but you need to kind of find something. I mean, I started off with a tennis ball, and I've since moved to bumpers and stuff like that, and that make sure they're going to float and not sink to the bottom. And them get out in the pool, it's like, where'd it go? And
Yeah,
and then you got to fish it out of the bottom. So definitely having a toy that floats and working with them on the ground, working on a little fetch and stuff like that, and then transition, go to a local pond or lake, a boat ramp, even where it's a slow, gradual incline to where they can walk in on the water, and then once they get comfortable, they'll get out there and swim around and just getting them acclimated to something that they're unfamiliar with and something that they're more confident in doing.
yeah. And then like building that like line of trust and communication. It was fun because there's a local place near me and they actually have two indoor swimming pools and they've got an outdoor like kind of like a practice duck jump built up. And I just took my dogs recently more so for some like indoor exercise as we move into the winter months. But I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see if he kind of likes like swimming, doing it from an indoor and moving him out there. But it was really fun working with them. And they were just like teaching them how to swim too and not doing that big flailing because I've got one, he's a boxer pointer mix and he just like doesn't understand that concept. So she was like just trying to get him. And I was like, so not you, maybe Guinness.
Right. So, I mean, I'm not big on the whole life jacket thing. Like, if we're in open water or something with a current, maybe. But I mean, Denali, he's tread water for 4 hours, and when we're at the lake and just hanging out at the docks, and that's what he does. But
Driven and
just
swimming.
getting a life preserver on them will help kind of make them float a little bit to where they can work on that fluid stroke and not be splashing themselves in the face, making it harder for them to see what's going on and getting water in their nose and drinking more water than they should. It makes them a little more confident in
Yeah,
the whole swimming lesson part.
yeah. And she was like teaching us how to like go down the ramp and out the other side, not like backing out, which I'd never
Mm-hmm.
really thought about till she was like talking us through of like, no, they've got to learn to just like keep going all the way versus that back out, which I'm sure probably impacts similar training on your guys' side too, of just building that confidence in, and then how to get out of the water was also an interesting thing that we were working through, which I hadn't really thought about.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to learn how to. That's where you start. You start on the exit ramp. That way, the dog, hey, no, there's water here, and they can swim around. And then that way, they know how to get out once they actually move up onto the dock and get up there and actually jumping off. And that way, they're not trying to climb up over the side and hurt themselves. I mean, that's not what we want the dog to do. We want them to enjoy it. We want them to get some good exercise and all that. So you want to make it easy for them.
Mm-hmm. Looking back through my questions, we were just kind of like jumping into a little bit of training. What do you think is some of the different training steps that you would either recommend to somebody getting into it, or if you had a puppy versus an adult dog, what kind of like training tactics would you do differently for either to get them, like we were just talking about, confident and in the water and all those good things?
Well, I mean, obviously with a puppy, I mean, they're gonna be a little more confident and they want to get out there and kind of try things. So, I mean, setting up a little plastic pool in your backyard and filling it a couple inches and just throwing a toy or just letting them splash around in there. I mean, that's just working on that early water work will help out a lot. I mean, with an older dog, I mean, same thing. I mean, maybe up the scale a little bit and go to a pond or a lake or even a small creek that they can get in and kind of be a little more confident and just get acquainted with the water and know, hey, it's nothing that's gonna hurt them or scare them. And I mean, you obviously want to make sure it's a safe environment because if a dog tends to go underwater, I mean, with their head, it gets in their ears, it goes down their nose, and they go and shake it off, and they don't enjoy that. Just like we don't necessarily enjoy going underwater unless we're prepared for it.
Yeah.
So once they kind of learn, hey, it can happen, then it's a little bit easier. But definitely, I mean, just like I said, just getting them acquainted with the water will be a great step in that. And then, like I said, having a toy that they like that obviously floats and not going to sink to the bottom and just working on that. It's some good, easy steps to kind of start out with the dock diving world, and then looking up a local facility that has a permanent dock, or looking on an organization's website to see, hey, they're going to be in my area, and see what it would take to get out there and try it.
Yeah. Yeah. Building those like positive water associations and then kind of refining it from there. You mentioned a good point of like finding like local orgs and stuff. I know UKC has kind of a regional of focus, but do you ever have any good advice on how people can find like local orgs or trainers, or like you said, kind of events coming their way if they were interested in getting involved?
Yeah, so UKC has a full calendar of events, not only for dock diving, but for other dog disciplines. They also have local clubs. So, I mean, they may have offer different disciplines, not only dock diving. They might do weight pull or agility or confirmation if you're in the show part of things. And I mean, so getting on UKC, just getting on Google and searching up the organizations, seeing what they have available, and finding something that's reasonable travel time. I mean, I know people that I travel the country doing this, and they just kind of make little mini vacations out of them. And I mean, they'll drive 12, 13 hours, no problem, because they know the dog enjoys it. And a lot of people, once you get more vetted in it, you're looking for
Yeah.
that qualifying leg to get you into the championship or earn points through UKC. I mean, so UKC offers titles and points that you can get lots of pretty ribbons and stuff like that look nice and get titles for your dog. So I mean, you do it enough, you get a nice little certificate and some abbreviations on the beginning of your dog's call name. And I mean, it's just kind of something that some people like to have for their dog, whether it's just for having the dog or breeding possibilities, something like that. So
Yeah. Like
UKC
building.
dogs, definitely checking out that calendar would be a great start to see what's in the area and reaching out to them if you have any questions. And that the group there, I mean, they're kind of spread out. We're anywhere from Michigan to Arkansas, South Carolina, Texas. We're kind of all over the place and everywhere and in between. And so, I mean, there may not be something close, but we can certainly help you find something that's a little more manageable.
Yeah. Or know of other spots if
Yeah.
there's someone in the area.
Yeah, there's lots of dog organizations out there that are out there that you can go and look up and see that might have something a little bit closer that may not be what you're looking for, but it at least get you an intro to getting and finding a pool to get kind of started on it, and then you can kind of branch into, okay, well we're a little more vetted and experienced. We're ready to take a 3-hour trip to go to a duck diving competition and see what we can really do when we show up to a competition.
Yeah. One of the questions I actually have, as you were kind of talking about the titles and then also the championship that's coming up, what are the, like, how many qualifiers do you have to be in? Like, what is the actual ranking process to get into the championships?
So in the Super Retriever Series, all you have to do is place first, second, or third, and you earn an invite to the Crown Championship. With UKC and their title points, you have to jump 5 jumps within that certain division. So with that, you have 0 to 10 foot, and then 5 foot increments after that are divisions, and then you have like a silver division, which are like dogs that are 9 and above, or you have a mini division, which are dogs that are 16 inches or below the withers. That way, I mean, the small dogs don't necessarily have to compete with the big dogs, and the small jumpers don't have to compete with the big jumpers. So you go in with those title points, you get those 5 jumps within that certain division, and you get your first title. And then you build on that. So then after you get that first initial title, depending on where you're jumping, if you're jumping real consistent, you get points. And once you accrue enough points, you'll get your champion or your grand, and you'll get those titles in that aspect. And then you get multipliers and stuff like that.
Got it. So it's like consistency, continuously going, but it's structured from that side of things. Okay, that makes more sense. I was always curious about it.
It makes it easier. Like I said, I mean, for somebody that's new and is going to show up to a competition, I mean, you get a little anxious and nervous, and you don't know really what to expect. And that's one thing I do here at my local facility that I train with. I mean, we just finished up the season because it's starting to get cold, and so at the end of the year, every year, I hold a little mock dock diving competition for a day, and I invite all my students to come out. That way they know how a competition runs and what to expect. That way they show up to an event and they kind of know what to expect, not just standing over in the corner with their twiddling their thumbs like, okay, what do I do next? And looking like a deer in their headlights. I mean, you want everybody to feel comfortable and confident just as much as the dogs. So
the dogs, yeah.
It
translates people so much through to them too, that like if you're anxious, they're gonna be like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and they're gonna pick up on it. Just like if the crowd's cheering, I mean, they're gonna pull off that drive, and you may get a bigger jump than you ever have because they're cheering on and that noise and the music's going or whatever. I mean, so it's one of those things you just kind of get acclimated to, and once you get in it, you tend to get addicted.
That's awesome. That's cool. I'll just check in chat, and I think we've wrapped up most of questions. Did you have anything else on your mind as we were chatting through stuff that you'd want to share with?
No, not that I can think of. I think we hit
I
everything.
think
I
we
mean, like you
covered
said,
a lot of good basic stuff. I know we're collaborating on some content with your team, and we'll be getting some good articles posted within our Guide to Dogs section of the site about how to teach your dog to swim, get some of those good tips that we kind of talked about, building confidence on the ramps. One of our ambassadors, Melinda Benbow, her pup Jasper is getting really involved in getting his titles and stuff like that too. So I know she's got some really cool stuff on her site also with some general training basics. So we should have a decent amount more content built out around dock jumping moving forward. So really appreciate you joining us and giving us kind of like some overview. Let me question you about a bunch of stuff. And then hopefully everybody else will join us next week. Next Tuesday, we also have another dog focused live stream. It'll be with our friends over at Standing Stone Kennels. We're going to kind of do a nail care type of video for senior dogs and some puppies, which I'm sure nail care is involved with dog jumping too. You don't want them to be breaking toenails or anything out.
well, I mean, they're jumping on AstroTurf, so I mean, it's not like you're on a dock out at the lake or the pond. I mean, and jumping on hardwood. I mean, there's AstroTurf to give them some good kind of traction. And I mean, like I said, we definitely want to make sure that the dog doesn't get hurt, because when the dog gets hurt, you end up with medical bills, or the dog never wants to get back up on the dock again. I mean, we want them to enjoy it. Like I said, it's something great for them to get out and do. It doesn't take much to get into the sport as long as they have that drive for the water and the toy drive. I mean, it's something that they tend to love. And I mean, Denali, he's very obedient, but you get him up on the dock and all obedience goes out the window. He knows
like,
what he wants to do, and he wants to do it. So I mean, that sit stay. I mean, having him hold that, he wants that bumper. So I mean, there's so many times I'll walk up to the edge of the dock and I'll be ready, and he's already broke his sit stay, and we have to walk back, and it's like, no, you need to stay till
like
I'm ready.
into it.
And he just wants to be in the water and swim. That's all he cares about. I mean,
Yeah.
when we're setting up or tearing down the dock before we drain the water, he's up on the dock with his bumper. He's playing with it. He's got a game where he goes and holds it right on the edge of the dock, and it falls in the water. He jumps in, back up the exit ramp, through the gate, and he plays with himself because he knows that I'm busy and I can't do anything because I'm busy trying to get ready or tear down so that we can head home and get ready for our next adventure.
That's so cute. And then that's when you know they love their job, they love what they're doing. Those are those moments
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, that's so sweet. Well, thank you again for your time. This was such a pleasure chatting, and thanks everyone that joined us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.